Time change has got a few people, huh? It's typically when we move back in time, it's typically the most attended church. When you move forward, it's the lowest attended church service. Isn't that crazy? Kind of knew it would be. Yeah, let's do that. No, 39. I'm sorry. We went this. Did I not tell you the whole Judah story last week? And Tamar. Didn't we cover all that? And with parental guidance have suggested. Let's go to 39. Genesis 39. There we go. And Joseph was brought down to Egypt in Potiphar. Potiphar was an officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard. An Egyptian bought him off the hands of the Ishmaelites, which had brought him down to hither. Now remember this. I think this is so critical that we remember this. I hate to keep reiterating stuff like this, but there's things you have to reiterate just to keep them in our mind. Here's the gist of this. Do you remember Abraham and Sarah taking matters into their own hands when God gave them a promise to have a baby, which was going to be Isaac, but because the times went by and it didn't happen like they thought that it should happen in the time frame it should happen, Sarah got a little impatient, goes out and creates it on her own way, gets Hagar, her handmaid, to come in and be with Abraham. Abram then has sex with her, they have a child, and it's Ishmael. Ishmael looks like a mistake, and it really wasn't supposed to happen. Well, here's how God redeems the mistakes. He creates a situation for Joseph here, and Joseph was thrown in the pit by his brother. The Ishmaelites come along, transport him to Egypt, and they sold him for 20 shekels of silver, and to the Ishmaelites, his brothers did. Then Joseph gets transported to Egypt, and the Ishmaelites, which is the mistake of their great-grandfather, actually are what transported him to Egypt. They sold him to the hands of the Egyptians. Isn't this crazy how this works? And God will take your mistakes too. And the Lord was with Joseph and was a prosperous man. See, I want you to see the significance. I can go back and show you all through Genesis, which we've already done. Abraham was prosperous. Isaac was prosperous. Ishmael was prosperous. Jacob was prosperous. Esau was prosperous. Now we're looking at the 12 sons of Jacob, or Israel, and now we're looking, and Joseph was a prosperous man. And he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord had made all that he did to prosper in his hand. Joseph found grace in his sight, and served him, and made him overseer over his house, and all that he had he put into his hand. And it came to pass from the time that he had made him overseer in his house, and over all that he had, that the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. And the blessing of the Lord was upon all that he had in his house and in the field. And he left all that he had in Joseph's hand, and he knew not aught he had, save the bread which he did eat. And Joseph was a goodly man and well favored. And it came to pass after these things that his master's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph, and she said, Lie with me. But he refused and said unto his master's wife, Behold, my master wot not what is with me in my house, and he had committed all that he hath in my hand. Here's what's happening. Joseph's getting blessed. Joseph's getting raised up, promoted. He's second in charge now, into the point where Potiphar didn't even know what he had in his house. He just left it all in charge of Joseph. Joseph had it all to himself, and as he was growing with it, and God blessed it, everything Joseph put his hand to, he blessed. Potiphar was so impressed by that, he just kept giving him more. Finally, one day, his wife comes through and says, Hey, kind of help me here. And that wasn't happening. But he refused and said to his master's wife, Behold, my master trusts me with all that's in his house, and he's committed everything he has in my hand. There's none greater in his house than me. Neither hath he kept back anything from me. Because thou art his wife, how then can I do this great wickedness? But look at this, sin against God. And it came to pass, as he spoke to Joseph day by day, as she spoke with Joseph day to day, that she hearkened not unto her to lie by her or to be with her. And it came to pass about this time that Joseph went into the house to do his business. There was none of the men of the house there within. See, this is a principle here. He went in the house. She was already in the house by herself, nobody else around. That's why when we do counseling here, the door's got to be open, or you know what I mean. You don't mess around like that, because you get a wicked woman or a wicked man. Let me just keep it equal here, and they'll get you all kinds of trouble. And it came to pass about that time that Joseph went to the house to do his business. There was none of the men in the house there within, and she caught him by his garment. She ripped his garment off, and she says, Lie with me. And he left his garment in her hand, and he ran and got him out. And it came to pass, when she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and was fled forth, that she called upon unto the men of her house and spake unto them, saying, See, he hath brought into a Hebrew unto us to mock us. He came in unto me to lie with me, and I cry with loud voice. Now she's making up a story because he rejected her. Now she's making up a big story about him. It came to pass when he heard that she kind of made a story on him, and when he heard about it, he lifted up his voice and cried that he left his garment with me and fled and got him out. And she laid the garment upon her until Potiphar came home. Then she spake unto him according to these words, saying, Your buddy, the one you love, the one you get all this power to, which you thought has brought into us, came in unto me. The word to mock me means to seduce me. And it came to pass, as I lifted up my voice and cried, that he left his garment with me and fled out. And it came to pass, when his master heard the words of his wife, which she spake unto him, saying, After this manner did thy servant to me, that his wrath, he was angry at Joseph now. And Joseph's master Potiphar took him and put him into his prison, a place where the king's prisoners were bound. And he was there in the prison. But the Lord was with Joseph again, and showed him mercy and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. Don't you think this is kind of strange? We're in the 39th chapter of Genesis, and I just want to give a little commentary here. Don't you think this is weird? I mean, you read all the New Testament stories, and it's Jesus going around healing people, casting out devils, raising the dead, and putting ears back on, drying up people that are bleeding, withered hands growing and straightening out, blind eyes opening, deaf ears hearing, continually raising people from the dead in funerals. Those are good stories to tell, and it leads to the crucifixion of Christ. But you don't really hear a whole lot of that kind of stuff in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. You know what I mean? But my goodness, over here in Genesis, you read all this stuff. The Old Testament is full of man's humanity and how we are left to ourselves trying to interact with a God that you can't see. Does that make sense? A God that can be heard but can't see. Don't really know him. And they're trying, But this is before the law was even given. This is humanity in its rarest form. I mean, think about it. And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all that he had that were in prison. Now Joseph, think about it, coat of many colors. His father favored him. His brothers were jealous. He had a dream, two dreams. Father blessed him, gave him that coat. Sends him out to go look for his brothers one day to check on him. His brothers throw him in a pit, then sell him to the Egyptians. His brother Jacob, or Israel, his dad, Israel, thinks that he got killed because they brought back the coat that had blood on it. They killed the goat, with blood on it. It looks like that Joseph's dead. So in Jacob or Israel's mind, his son Joseph is dead. And really what's happened, and he has been transferred now to Egypt through the Ishmaelites. And I want you to recognize something, that Jacob and his sons were all living down here. The boys knew that his brother was alive. Or they knew, they sold him. They didn't know he was still alive, they knew he sold him. There's a whole life going on up here in Egypt that his daddy didn't even know he had, was going on. So it's like a scene of a movie, if you can picture this, that you've got this down here in Shechem going on here, and over here in Egypt, you've got this other movie playing. And down the road, these two movies will come together. You picturing that with me? Okay, so while his dad favored him down here, the favor followed him everywhere he went, because the favor really wasn't just from Jacob. The favor really was from God. You can take a person's coat off of them, but they really still doesn't take the favor off of them. When God puts favor on a person's life, they're favored. Put them anywhere. This is a good example. He was favored by his dad. He found grace really in his brothers, because even though they didn't kill him, he found favor with Potiphar. Now he's in the jail and getting favor with the jailer. And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph all that he had. Here he is again, giving him all his steward. He's his steward over the whole prison now. Whatever they say, and whatsoever they did there, he was a doer of it. The keeper of the prison looked not to anything that was under his hand, because the Lord was with him, and that which he did, the Lord made it to prosper. Let's just keep right on going. Chapter 40. I think it's next. Yep. And it came to pass after these things that the butler of the king of Egypt and his baker had offended their lord the king of Egypt. Now here's Joseph put in the prison with two of the king's servants. One was a butler, the other was a baker. And it came to pass after these things that the butler of the king of Egypt and his baker both offended the lord the king of Egypt. And Pharaoh was angry with both of these two officers, against the chief of the butlers and against the chief of the bakers. And he put them in the ward in the house of the captain of the guard into the prison, the place where Joseph was. So here you had Joseph, that was number 2 in command in Potiphar's house. You had the chief baker and the chief butler, and all three of them now are in prison. Joseph's in control because he's gotten blessed. Okay. And the captain of the guard charged Joseph with them, and he served them, and they continued a season in the ward. And they dreamed a dream, both of them, each man his dream, in one night. Each man according to the interpretation of his dream, the butler and the baker of the king of Egypt, which were bound in the prison. And Joseph came in unto them in the morning and looked upon them, and behold, they were both sad. And he asked Pharaoh's officers that were with him in the ward of the Lord's house, saying, Wherefore look ye so sadly today? And the chief butler told his dream to Joseph and said to him, In my dream, behold, a vine was before me. And in the vine were 3 branches. And it was as though it had budded, and her blossoms shot forth. And the clusters therefore brought forth ripe grapes. And Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes, and I pressed them into the Pharaoh's cup, and I gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. And Joseph said unto him, This is the interpretation of it. The 3 branches are 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thine hand and restore you unto your place. And thou shalt deliver Pharaoh's cup into his hand, after the former manner when there was a butler. In other words, he's saying in 3 days, you're going to go back to your same place of favor. But think on me, here's Joseph. Think about me. Remember me. Remember me when you're gone. Remember me. Remember, I'm the one who interpreted this for you. When this happens, I'm the one still in prison here, but help me. But think on me when it shall be well with me, with thee, and show kindness, I pray thee, unto me, and make mention of me to Pharaoh, and bring me out of this house. For indeed I was stolen away out of the hand of the land of the Hebrews. Here he's going to tell the whole story. Now he's going to tell how bad he really was. He wants this butler to feel, or the baker, whatever that was, to feel sorry for himself. For indeed I was stolen out of the land of the Hebrews, and here also I have done nothing that they should put me in this dungeon. When the chief baker saw that the interpretation was good, it was the baker, and he said unto Joseph, I also was in a dream, and behold, I had three, here we go again, I had 3 white baskets on my head. And in the uppermost basket there was of all manner of baked meats for Pharaoh, and the birds did eat them out of the basket upon my head. And Joseph answered and said, this is the interpretation thereof, that 3 baskets, 3 days. Yet within these 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thine head from off thee, in other words, he's going to kill you, and shall hang thee on a tree, and the birds shall eat thy flesh from off thee. And it came to pass the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, that he made a feast unto all the servants, and he lifted up the head of the chief butler and of the chief baker among his servants. Now that's 3 days later, just like Joseph's saying. Joseph prophesied this through this dream interpretation. Here's what's happening. The 3 days are coming to pass. Now watch this. And he restored the chief butler into his butlership again, and he gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker, just as Joseph has interpreted. Yet did not the chief butler remember Joseph, but he forgot him. Isn't it how it goes? You help somebody out of their jam, they're in a position to help you out of your jam. They don't even remember you're in a jam. They don't remember your name. They're just glad to get out of their mess. And it came to pass at the end of 2 full years, God, can you imagine 24 months, that Pharaoh dreamed, and behold, he stood by the river. And behold, there came up out of the river 7 well-favored kine, and fat-fleshed, and they fed in a meadow. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them out of the river, ill-favored and lean-fleshed, and stood by the other kine upon the brink of the river. There's 2 different types. And the ill-favored and the lean-fleshed kine did eat upon the 7 well-favored and fat kine. In other words, you got some starving ones and you got some healthy ones. And so Pharaoh had this dream, and now he woke up. And he slept and dreamed the 2nd time. And behold, there 7 ears of corn came upon one stalk, rank and good. And behold, 7 thine ears had blasted with the east wind sprung upon after them. And the 7 thin ears devoured the 7 rank and full ears. And Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream. It was exactly the same dream, just different symbols. And it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled. And he sent and called for all the magicians from Egypt, and all the wise men thereof. And Pharaoh told them his dream, but there was none that could interpret them unto Pharaoh. Then spake the chief butler unto Pharaoh, saying, I do remember my faults this day. Pharaoh was wroth with his servants, and put him in ward in the captain of the guard's house, both me and the chief baker. And we dreamed a dream in one night, and we dreamed each man according to the interpretation of his dream. And there was there this young man, a Hebrew servant, to the captain of the guard. We told him, and he interpreted to our dreams. To each man according to his dream, he interpreted. And it came to pass as he interpreted to us, so it was. In other words, it happened. Me, restored to my office. The other, hanged. Then Pharaoh sent and called for Joseph. Watch this. And they brought him hastily out of the dungeon, and he shaved himself and changed his raiment and came in unto Pharaoh. Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I've dreamed a dream, and there is none that can interpret it. And I have heard say of you that you can interpret a dream. And Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, it's not me, only God. Pharaoh can interpret the dream. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, in my dream, behold, I stood upon the bank of a river. And behold, there came out of me the river 7 kine, fat-fleshed, and well-favored. And they fed in the meadow. And behold, 7 other kine came up out of the river, poor, ill-favored, lean flesh, such as I never saw in the land of Egypt for badness. And the lean and the ill-favored kine did eat up the first 7 fat kine. And when they had eaten them up, it could not be known that they had eaten them up, but they were still ill-favored, as at the beginning. Then I woke up. And I saw in my dream, and behold, 7 ears come upon one stalk, full and good. And then behold, 7 ears thin and withered and blasted with the east wind sprung up right after them. And the thin ears devoured the 7 good ears of corn. And I told this one unto the magicians, but there's not one of them could declare it and interpret it for me. And Joseph said unto Pharaoh, the dream of Pharaoh is one. God has showed Pharaoh what he's about ready to do. But listen to this. The 7 good kine are 7 years. The 7 good ears are 7 years. The dream is one. In other words, you had 2 dreams, 2 different symbols, but I'm trying to get you the same message. And the 7 thin and ill-favored kine that came up after them are the 7 years, and the 7 empty ears blasted with the east wind shall be 7 years of famine. This is the thing which I have spoken unto Pharaoh. What God is about to do, he showed it to you, Pharaoh. Behold, there come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt. And there shall arise after them 7 years of famine, and all the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and the famine shall consume the land. Here's what he's saying. Pharaoh, I'm telling you, this is the story. He said, you've had 2 dreams. You had 7 healthy kine, calf, cattle, whatever you want to call those things. They're here. You had 7 that are healthy. You had 7 over here that were not healthy. The 7 healthy ate up the 7 bad ones. You got 2 dreams. The corn did the same thing. He said, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to give you the interpretation. God is showing you what he's about to do over the next 14 years. The first 7 years are going to be an incredibly healthy, bountiful years of prosperity. 7 unbelievable, uncharted, unmeasurable years of just success in 7 years. But right after the 7 years of success, there's going to be 7 years of famine. And those 7 years of famine are going to be so bad in this country that it's going to overshadow all the 7 good years. So here's what you'll need to do. What's this? And the plenty shall not be known in the land by the reason of that famine following. In other words, they're going to be so bad in those bad 7 years, they're going to forget how good the last 7 years were. For it shall be very grievous. And for that dream was doubled unto Pharaoh twice. Why? Here's a principle in the Bible when you have dreams that come to you twice. Maybe 2 different symbols, but the dream comes to you in the same interpretation twice. It's because the thing, it's established by God. So when you have a dream, and you're laying there and you have a dream and it comes twice to you, it's because God has established it. That's why you have to have the right person to interpret it. Not anybody interpret it. My goodness. There are some crazy people out there in the world. They'll interpret dreams and they'll have you twisted. You better make sure you're hearing somebody that hears the Lord. It is because the thing is established by God, and God will shortly, here's the deal, he won't give you a dream that comes for 40 years down the road, 100 years down the road. He'll give you a dream when he establishes it. It'll come shortly. Shortly to God, though, is a generation. That's why I said 40 years down the road, probably within 40. It'll shortly come to pass. Now, therefore, let Pharaoh look out at a man, discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. Now, this is Joseph telling him that. That Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint officers over the land, and take up the 5th part of the land of Egypt in the 7 plenteous years. When things are good, Joseph's saying, here's a principle. Put back 20% of it. Put 20% in savings to prepare for the... Here's a principle. His whole family tithe. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. 10% goes into the Lord. 20% goes into your savings. If you're in a tax bracket that's 30% or higher, and the government gets more than God and you and your family get combined, you're out of order. Just saying. Am I okay? If you pay more taxes and more than you give into the Lord or give into your family, then you're working for the wrong Pharaoh. Is that okay? If you paid $2,500 in taxes and you gave God $1,500 last year, you have the wrong God. It's not intentions, it's just priority. Because most people's intentions are to give more to God than to give to the government. A lot of it's just ignorance. They don't know. And that's why I'm telling you. Right? And your family shouldn't suffer because you're given to the government and given to the Lord. So it's priority. You make $1, the first 10%, $10, 10 cents goes to God. The next 20 cents should be into your storehouse for you all. Your kids shouldn't get upset. Grandkids shouldn't be upset. Or your family shouldn't get upset. And you shouldn't have to squawk and fight when they want to buy a pair of tennis shoes. I'm just telling you the way it is. It's reality. Here's a principle. 20%. Now this is for the government. Our government has a 17 or 19 or whatever it is $trillion deficit. We don't save 20% off our revenue. Our government just raises taxes so they can continue to try to pay the debt. Right? Or to give more programs. I'm just telling you where it is. Right. Just keep borrowing, but we keep giving programs because the country keeps becoming so needy. So what you do is you establish an entitlement. What he's saying is, you got 7 years of prosperity that's going to happen here. The 20% of that 7 years of prosperity needs to be put back. Why? Because the famine isn't just for here. The famine's going to be for everywhere. And then you become a leader. The borrower is servant to the lender. Okay? Watch this, keep going. You'll see what I'm talking about. And let them gather all the food for those good years that come, and lay up corn under the hand of Pharaoh, and let them keep food in the cities. And the food that shall be for store to the land against the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt, that the land perish not through the famine. I got to show you all this when we get to this. I got to get here today. Now, I'm going to show you the difference between creating commerce or economy and entitlement that creates welfare. Okay? If I was running for president, and I'm not, if I was, I would go ahead and pass a law saying 18 years from now, welfare will be gone. And I would give this generation 18 years to come up with a plan that every baby that's born from this day forward will not be entitled to welfare at 18 years old. Only people that are hurt, disabled, those people that are that incapacitated, that kind of thing. We got to take care of people. But just to have welfare system, you got to put them on notice today. You're going to educate them from day one as a baby all the way through, and then they're going to be going on to college or going somewhere, some sort of vocational school or something that they're going to be able to create with their hands or create with their mind. And you got 18-year notice, so that gives 18 years that plan goes away. That way nobody gets affected by it that's already born, but everybody that's born here down goes. Why? He gave a 14-year plan. Why can't we give an 18-year? When's the last 18-year plan you heard from the government here? Excuse me, you haven't, have you? It doesn't happen. We go 4 years to 4 years because that's when they get elected. Anyway. And the food shall be for a store to the land against the 7 years of famine, which came in the land of Egypt, that the land perished not through the famine. And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh. Pharaoh got this. He liked this. And in the eyes of all his servants. Now look what happens. And Pharaoh said to his servants, can we find such as this, a man in whom the Spirit of God is? And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, for as much as God has showed thee all this stuff, there's none so discreet and wise as you. Thou shalt be over my house. And now think about it. Favored by his dad, thrown in the pit, spared his life, transported to Egypt by his grandfather's mistakes, people. Then he goes into Potiphar's house, gets thrown back into prison because Potiphar's wife lies on him. He gets promoted in jail, leading the jail, pulls out of the jail, now into Pharaoh's house, interprets a dream, and then the gifts of God on his life are without repentance, so they don't change, so God makes a way for him. His gift will make a room for himself, right? Now watch this. Now Pharaoh saw his gift. Thou shalt be over my house, and according to thy word, shall all my people be ruled. In other words, you just set rule in this place. Only in the throne will I be greater than you. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, see, I have set thee over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand and put it on Joseph's hand. Why the ring? Ring is a signet ring. Signet is where we get the word signature. So in other words, I'm giving you my signature. You got my power of attorney. From his hand, he put it on Joseph's hand and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen. Whoa. Now he's getting another coat. And he put a gold chain around his neck. Gold, purity, deity. And he made him to ride in the second chariot, which he had. And this guy was in prison just a few months ago. No, a few weeks ago. Okay? And he was in there for 2 years after he interpreted the dream for the butler and the baker. And they cried before him, bow the knee, and he made the ruler over land. Now the guy was in prison, now they're bowing to him. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. No, you're over all this stuff. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zaphnath-Paneah, and he gave him to his wife Asenath, the daughter of Pharaoh, priest of On. And Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt. Not only did he get out of prison, he got a woman. Signature, vesture, gold chain, and a wife. And a chariot that was sitting behind. Is the second in command. My God. You talking about favor. Here's the same guy that was thrown in the pit. Okay. And Joseph was 30 years old. Wait a minute. 30 years old. When did Jesus' ministry start? 30 years old. You'll see this is significant. There's a lot of parallel. Now Jesus, well, we'll get to that in a few minutes. I'll get started off here and I'll get off and then we'll get going forever. And Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh. And you remember how old Joseph was when he was thrown in that pit? 17? Teenager, right? So this has been 12 or 13 years. That man went through pure hell for 12 or 13 years. It seemed like it only been about 2 chapters in the Bible, but man, that's a long time. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went throughout all the land of Egypt. And in the 7th plenty of years, the earth brought forth by handfuls. And he gathered up all the food of the 7 years, which were in the land of Egypt, and laid up the food in the cities, the food of the field, which was round about every city. Laid he up the same. And Joseph gathered corn as the sand of the sea, very much until he left numbering, for it was without number. There was so much he couldn't even count it. It was so good. And to Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of famine came, which Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, Pharaoh, priest of On, bare unto him. And Joseph called the name of the firstborn, look at this, Manasseh. You're going to remember these names here shortly. Manasseh, for God said, he hath made me forget all my toil. Everything that I'd went through in my father's house, he forget him. And then the name of the second son, he called him Ephraim. For God hath caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. So he had Manasseh and Ephraim. Now I want you to get this. There's Abraham, there's Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, Manasseh and Ephraim. So Manasseh and Ephraim, Abraham is the grandfather of Isaac, or of Jacob, the great-grandfather of Joseph, and the great-great-grandfather of these 2 kids. Great-great-grandfather of these 2 kids. You get that? Still going down the line. We're still in posterity. Remember the promise that Abraham had. Your kids' going to be blessed. As far as you can see. And the 7 years of plenteous that was in the land, okay, here we go. In the land of Egypt were ended. And the 7 years of famine or dearth began to come according as Joseph had said. And the famine was in all the lands, but in all the land of Egypt there were bread. And when all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread. And Pharaoh said unto all the Egyptians, go to Joseph, what he says to do, you do it. Now wait a minute. Do you remember being at a wedding at the Cana of Galilee when Jesus was sitting at a wedding with his mom and his disciples, and they were out of wine? And they came to Mary and they said, hey, we're out of wine here. And she looked at Jesus and said, we're out of wine. Jesus says, well, what's that? Woman, what's that to do with me? My hour hasn't come. You remember that? And then the woman, Mary, which is the Word, which is the church woman looked at the Word and said, I told you once. Then she looked at the servants and she said, whatever the Word tells you to do, you do it. Almost the same words. Pharaoh says, we're out of good stuff. It's time for the famine. And people were coming from all over the place. And Pharaoh looks at the people and says, whatever Joseph says to do, you do it. Right? That's placing authority. What's this? And the famine was all over the face of the earth. And Joseph opened all the storehouses. Oh, look at this. And sold unto the Egyptians. And the famine waxed worse in the land of Egypt. He sold it to them. They're in a famine. There was not a welfare system in Egypt, and the people were dying. You guys hear what I'm saying? If this could be the church, okay? And we're givers, we're benevolent in nature, and we're just benevolent. However, go back to that if you don't mind, Ken. And the famine was all over the face of the earth. It wasn't just in Egypt anymore. The famine had moved from Egypt all over the world. Okay? And people were coming from everywhere. This is not the first time global economy has started being talked about in the last decade. The global economy happened back then. And you've got a picture, if somebody would just read this, of what the global economy should look like. It's because we're in debt as a nation, not in saving. We're not prepared for the famine that's hit the world. The last 8 years, in 2008 when everything crashed, there was nothing. We just kept borrowing. So now we've got a whole generation of people, generation and a half of people that are used to just saying, I got to have. And yes, they need. There's not denying a need here. But when something's happening across the world, our job is to market it, to economize it, to commerce it, not just to give it. Do you see what I'm saying? That is hard out of a nature where the world looks at the church and says, gosh, you guys, you're just all about money. No, we're about economy. Right? This is tough. This really is tough. And all countries came into Egypt to Joseph to what? To buy the corn. My God. Because the famine was so sore in all the lands. Watch this. I think we're in 442 now. Watch this. Gosh, I wish I could just keep going on this. This is good. You enjoying this? I'm telling you, man, this stuff is just incredible to me because this is real life living. And the church is capitalized over in Jesus' day where we're trying to create miracles, which is I'm all for because I'm going to preach about a little bit of that today. We all need to be living in that new covenant. But the reality of it is, this is Wall Street Journal stuff. This is CNN, Fox News, and all. This is real life stuff. This is what's happening globally in the world of how man tries to interact with God and lead a nation under the direction of God or the direction of heathen. One of the two. You're either world system or God's system. Now when Jacob, okay, wait a minute. We're shifting now. Now we have this picture. Remember what I was saying? We had this movie that we had Joseph or Jacob. The last time we even hear about this whole story of Jacob is when Jacob gets the word that his son's dead. Right? So Jacob's still down here living with these boys for at least 12 more years. Okay? Actually, I hate to say it, but now that it's been 7 years, We're in the second term of the 7 years. So now not only was it 12 years, the first 7's gone, that's 19, and somewhere in the next 7 years, which is in the 20-year range, 20 years plus have gone by, and now we're bringing Jacob back in the story. You following me? While there is a whole world up here living in Joseph that Jacob's not even aware of. So you've got this movie that's happening, and the movie here says this, Jacob, you got the movie of Joseph up here. It's like a split screen. This one's working, this one's living up here, this one's down here, and now these whole worlds, these movies, are about to converge. Okay? Now when Jacob saw that there was corn in Egypt, Jacob said to his sons, why do you look one upon another? He said, behold, I have heard that there's corn in Egypt. Get you down there, buy for us, that we may live and not die. And Joseph's 10 brothers went down to buy corn in Egypt. Why the 10 and not? Joseph's gone. Benjamin, the other one, the youngest brother. Why Benjamin here? Because remember, Benjamin and Joseph were from the daughter of Rachel, right? But the 10 that were from Leah and the others were going to sin, right? But Benjamin, the baby, Joseph's brother, Jacob sent not with his brother, for he said, lest peradventure mischief befall. In other words, something will happen to him. And the sons of Israel came to buy corn among those that came, for the famine was in the land of Canaan. Can I point something out here to you? Do you know that the previous verse said Jacob? Because see, Jacob was still living under the 10 and the 1. He was still living under that rule. Okay, you following me? The next verse says Israel because now he's working on God's plan. When Jacob gets into Jacob, he's over here, he's called Jacob. When he's under God's plan, he's under Israel. And the sons of Israel came to buy corn amongst those that came, for the famine was in the land of Canaan. That's the first time you heard Canaan, didn't you? It's all been called Egypt up to now, up to this point in the story. And Joseph was the governor now over all the land. And it was that sold to all the people of the land. And the Joseph's brethren came and bowed down themselves before him with their faces to the earth. And Joseph saw his brother, and he knew who they were, but made himself strange unto them. They didn't recognize him. And he spake roughly unto them, and he said unto them, where do you come from? And they said, from the land of Canaan to buy food. And Joseph knew his brother, but they didn't, but they knew him not. You remember any other scripture in the Bible that talks about that? John chapter 1. He came into his own, and his own knew him not. It's a picture, okay? And Joseph remembered the dreams. Oh, here we go. 25 plus years ago, Joseph remembered the dreams which he dreamed of them, and said unto them, ye are spies. You see the nakedness of the land, you come. And they said to him, no, my Lord. They're calling him Lord now. But to buy food is why your servants come. We are all one man's sons. We're brothers. We are true men. We're not servants. We're not spies. We're your servants. We're not spies. And he said unto them, no, but to see the nakedness of the land. He's messing with them now. And they said, the servants are 12 brothers. Oh, here we go. The sons of one man in the land of Canaan. We're brothers of 12. The youngest is not here is with our father, and one is not. And Joseph said, that is not that I spake unto you, saying, ye are spies. Hereby ye shall be proved by the life of Pharaoh. Ye shall not go forth hence, except, look, you bring your younger brother to me. Okay, Jesus is the older brother to us. We are the sons of God. We are the youngest brother. You hear me? Is that making sense? Okay. Send one of you, and let him fetch your brothers, and ye shall be kept in prison. that your words may be proved, whether there be any truth in you, or else by the life of Pharaoh, surely you are spies. Man, have I got time? I've got time. And he put them all together in ward 3 days. He put them in prison for 3 days. And Joseph said unto them on the third day, This do and live, for I fear God. If ye be true men of men, let one of your brother be bound in the house of your prison. In other words, we're to keep one here. You go carry corn for the famine to your house. But bring your youngest brother back unto me, so shall your words be verified, and ye shall not die. And they did so. What's this? And they said one to another, We are verily guilty concerning our brother, in that we saw the anguish of his soul when he besought us, and we would not hear. Therefore is this distress come upon us. They're now remembering what happened to what they did to Joseph. And now it's all coming back to them. It's not that it left them. And Reuben spake and said to them, saying, Spake I not unto you, saying, Do not sin against this child. Now Reuben's going to be the big man and say, Didn't I tell you? Y'all brought this on yourself. Do not sin against the child, and you would not hear. You wouldn't listen to me. Therefore, behold, also his blood is required. And they knew not that Joseph understood them. Joseph listened to all this, for he spoke unto them by an interpreter. And he turned himself about from them and wept, and returned to them again and communed with them, and took from them, oh, look at this, Simeon. Remember what Simeon means? Here. This is so good. And bound him before their eyes. Then Joseph commanded to fill their sacks with corn, and to restore every man's money into his sack, and to give them provision for the way. Thus he did, he unto them. And they laded their asses with corn, and departed thence. And as one of them opened his sack to give his ass provender in the end, I guess, he espied his money. For behold, it was in his sack's mouth. And he said unto his brethren, My money is restored, and lo, it is even in my sack. They give money for buy the corn. Joseph takes the money, hides it in the sack of one of the brothers. All right? But he took the money, and then he hid it in the sack of the other. Plus, he gave him the corn. Yeah. Now they're on their journey going back to the house, and they look and they go, Oh my God, I've just found this money. Okay? Now watch this. I found the money's in my sack, and their hearts they failed them. And they were afraid, saying to one another, What is this that God has done to us? And they came unto Jacob their father into the land of Canaan, and told him all that befell them, saying, The man who is the Lord of the land spake roughly to us, and took us for spies of the country. And we said to him, We're true men, we're not spies. We be 12 brothers, son of our father. One is not, and the youngest is the day with our father in the land of Canaan. And the man, the Lord of the country, said unto us, Hereby shall I know that you're true men. Leave one of your brothers here with me, and take food for the famine of your household, and be gone. And bring your youngest brother unto me. Then shall I know that you're not spies, that you are true men. So will I deliver your brother, the one I'm holding back, and ye shall traffic in the land, and go and do what you need to do. And it shall come to pass, and it came to pass as they emptied their sacks, that behold, every man's bundle of money was still in his sack. And when both they had their father saw the bundles of money, they were all scared. And Jacob their father said unto them, Me have ye bereaved of my children. Joseph's not, Simeon is not now, and ye will take Benjamin away, and all these things are against me. And Reuben spake unto his father, saying, Slay not my 2 sons. If I bring him not to you, deliver him to my hand, I will bring him to thee again. Now wait a minute. Yeah, Reuben. Reuben, big man now. And Reuben spake unto his father, saying, Slay my 2 sons, if I bring him not to thee, deliver him to my hand, I will bring him to thee again. What's this? And he said, My son shall not go down with you. I'm not doing it, for his brother's dead, and he's left alone. If mischief befall him, what he's protecting is his sons through Rachel. He knows if she dies, if you take Benjamin and Benjamin dies, the woman that I love that's supposed to have the seed is not going to be around. I got to have a seed. He is left alone. If mischief befall him on by the way, and when you go, then shall you bring down my gray hairs with sorrow to the grave. And the famine was even greater in the land. We're going to stop right there, 43. God. See you at 11. It's good stuff, man, I'm telling you.